just got out of theaters from seeing The Accountant 2 on the big screen, and I have some things that I want to talk about for this film, guys. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the movie review. Let's go. The Accountant 2 is an action thriller directed by Gavin O'Connor that stars Ben Affleck as the character of Christian Wolff, aka the Accountant, who, as we've seen in the first film, is a character with the autism spectrum disorder, and this disorder gives him highly exceptional mathematical skills. It also gives him like a level of social awkwardness, sensory sensitivities, and other things that go into this character. Now, this is a sequel 9 years in the making, something a lot of people have been waiting for a very long time, especially if you thoroughly enjoyed the first movie as much as I did. So with that being said, what do we get to see inside of this movie? Well, inside this plot, we see Christian Wolff, who has a talent for solving complex problems. When an old acquaintance is murdered, leaving behind a cryptic message to find the accountant, Wolff is compelled to solve the case. Realizing more extreme measures are necessary, Wolff recruits his estranged and highly lethal brother Braxton to help. In partnership with U.S. Treasury Deputy Director Marybeth Medina, they uncover a deadly conspiracy, becoming targets of a ruthless network of killers who will stop at nothing to keep their secrets buried. Now, this was a very interesting place to take the sequel to The Accountant, and how did it turn out? Well, let's go ahead and dive right into that with my positives for The Accountant 2. For my first positive with this movie, I want to touch on the cast right away. First things first, Ben Affleck. He is amazing inside of this film. I love his role as Christian Wolff. I love the way he portrays this character who exists in a world with this disorder but has to navigate his own life while also having all of these what you can call special abilities inside of this film. Now, again, he has that level of social awkwardness to him, but with his exceptional problem solving skills and mathematical skills, he is able to put together cases in a way that most people's brains aren't able to understand, and the way Ben Affleck gets that across with his portrayal of this character is fantastic inside of this movie, as it was inside of the first film, along with the fact that this is a character who is highly experienced when it comes to combat, when it comes to guns, and it's all on display inside of this movie. We'll talk about that later in the positive section, but first things first, let's just continue to highlight the cast. Now, the next, member of the cast that I wanted to highlight is Ben Affleck's co-star inside of this film, Jon Bernthal, playing his brother character, Braxton. Now, we did get to see Braxton in the first movie. Of course, there was a slight plot twist in that movie with that character, but going into this film, we're aware of their relationship. Again, we're about 8 to 9 years removed from the first film, and that amount of time is the same amount of time that passed when you watched this movie inside of this movie world, for example. Now, while Jon Bernthal is playing a character he plays a lot in a lot of his roles, for instance, like the Punisher, he's always playing the same type of character, I can't help but love his portrayal of Braxton inside of this movie. I love the way he comes across. I love his introduction scene inside of this film. Braxton is sort of this hitman character, if you would like to call him that. He's very similar in terms of his level of capabilities when it comes to violence, similar to Ben Affleck's Christian Wolff character, and getting to see these two characters bounce off each other, their brotherly bond, them finally getting a chance to talk about the negative things in their past and in their relationship and try to amend them while also trying to solve this case and this problem together. It's amazing to see from these two lead roles inside of this film. Now, there is also a third character inside of this movie, which is a very important character. She kind of gets the entire plot moving along here. I mentioned her name in the plot summary portion of this video just slightly before this section, and that is the U.S. Treasury Deputy Director Marybeth Medina, played by Cynthia Addai-Robinson inside of this film. I thought she did an amazing job. Of course, she is the one reaching out to Ben Affleck's character, to Christian Wolff, and then Christian Wolff contacts his brother, and they end up working in unison, working along with this deputy director, and what is honestly a strange relationship between these two, because she's used to doing everything by the book, by the law, but in this particular instance, she needs help from these two criminals, these two lawbreakers, which goes against her morals, goes against her ethics, and she has to deal with that and put that aside inside of this film so they can work on the bigger case, the bigger goal of this conspiracy that they're trying to solve here. Now, these three characters alone carry the hell out of this movie. I loved their performance, I loved their portrayals, I loved the way they all interacted with each other, and yeah, I wanted to talk about that more specifically. Now, let's move into another positive I have with The Accountant 2, and that is the comedic elements inside of this film, guys. They included this a lot into this movie. There's a lot of just hilarious scenes, things that they play off of, especially considering, again, our main character does have a disorder, so they have a lot of jokes that play into his disorder, along with great moments from Jon Bernthal's characters, great one-liners that he has. There was even one particular moment which we got to see in the trailer for this film, which of course was an extended scene in the actual film itself, which was like this speed dating scenario that Christian Wolff finds himself in, where he's trying to game the system, create his own algorithm for this speed dating, and you just get a hilarious scene there where all of these women are lining up to meet him because he is a handsome guy, but once they actually get to know him and see how his mind works, they're immediately turned off. So I thought that was a great scene inside of this film, for example, but also there's an underlying tone of dark humor here which is laid out perfectly inside of this movie, where of course, being the action thriller that it is, people are getting killed left and right, but there's always a slight joke thrown in there to make fun of certain scenes, which, as someone who appreciates dark humor like myself, I definitely appreciated that inside of this film. Now let's move on to another positive I had with this film, and that is the action here. Of course, this is an action movie, so how well did they do on that end of things? Well, they did a fantastic job here. I love the way that they approached the action here. It almost gives John Wick vibes, kind of, here with the way they're constantly changing out their clips. We see Ben Affleck, Jon Bernthal working together in these scenes, implementing military tactics here as they bounce off each other and navigate a battlefield that they found themselves in. It's fantastic to watch. Along with some of the combat, some of the fight scenes here, it all feels very authentic, very real when you watch this movie, and I definitely appreciated all of the violence that we got to see on display here. Now, when it comes to my next positive with this film, it has to be the first act. Now, the first act, the way that they introduce these characters, the way that they get you back into the story here, explain to the audience the basic setup for what we're going to be getting here. For instance, what we seen in the trailer, someone Christian Wolff used to work with was assassinated, so that whole plotline, that whole aspect, the way it catches the audience's attention. And then to move into what is my final positive here, the third act of this film, where you get this big payoff, you get what you've been waiting for as you sat through this entire film. The third act of this movie is brilliant, it's amazing, it's masterfully done. Not only do you get these big action set pieces, these big action scenes, but you also get this emotional payoff that you wouldn't expect going into this movie, and kind of a hero send-off for our main characters here, which I loved and I appreciated. But that's not to say that this movie was perfect, okay guys? So let's move into my negatives for The Accountant 2. And for my first negative with this movie, I want to talk about the second act. If you were paying attention there in the positive section, you would have known that I highlighted the first act, I highlighted the third act of this film. Let's talk about the middle portion. Let's talk about the part of the movie that divides those two acts and kind of is expected to push us and carry us into that big payoff that I talked about. I gotta say, the writing for the second act for the middle part of this movie was extremely sloppy. We follow our characters here. Yes, we're getting great bonding moments between the two, but man, was it out of place. Man, was it not expected. It has nothing to do with the plot. The plot absolutely goes on a pause here, on a standstill, on a stalemate, as you just watched our characters do nonsense. They go about doing a bunch of nothing that has nothing to do with what actually matters in this movie. And as you're sitting there watching it, you're like, damn, okay, I can see, you know, why the critics had a slight problem with this movie, because it feels so out of place. It feels like it doesn't belong here, like they were just trying to fill out runtime, and I don't really know exactly what they were going for with this middle section of the movie. By the time you finish this film, you know, the credits start rolling, you just look back on this section like, what the hell was that? Why was it there? It's completely unnecessary, and really that's all I wanted to talk about it without getting too into spoilers about it. So with that being said, let's move into my overall review for The Accountant 2. Guys, this was a great sequel. I thought, you know, as a continuation story here, as a movie, like if you're a fan of the first film and you just want to exist in that world for 2 extra hours, for some extra time here, you want to learn a little bit more about these characters, explore more with them, get more time with them, get these great moments, these great action scenes with them, all of that is here with inside this movie. I think as a fan of the first film, you're going to appreciate this movie regardless of the problems that are definitely here, especially in the middle portion of this movie. Like I talked about, there's great comedic moments here, great comedy included, there's fantastic action scenes, great fight scenes, great shootouts that you get here, which was a big highlight not only in the third act but like in a lot of the trailers of this movie. That was really what they were pushing here, so trust me, you definitely get your fill of that. There's an interesting conspiracy plot here with this whole assassin storyline, where it also goes very dark at certain moments with this story, which again I definitely appreciated. And you get an amazing cast with some amazing acting inside of this film from not only Ben Affleck and John Bernthal, but like I mentioned, Cynthia Addai-Robinson does a fantastic job here too. So overall, guys, let's go ahead and drop my official rating for The Accountant 2. I give this film an 8 out of 10. It gets the 8 out of 10. Is it better than the first movie? No, it's not. But as a continuation, as a tack onto the first film, as a sequel, as just wanting to see and get more out of this world and these characters, I thought it was solid. I thought this is definitely something that if you're a fan of the first, you should go out and support, you should go out and see. Do I wish it was a little better? Yes, I do. I think we could have cut a lot of the fat out of the middle portion of this movie and made it even more of a sharper experience here for the fans. But regardless, I had a great time at the cinemas watching this movie. And you know, I think if you go back and watch the first film, you're definitely going to want to queue this one up right after, because it's a great 1 and 2 parter here. So yeah, I would recommend you go check this film out in theaters. You support it at the box office. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this review, guys. Those are my thoughts on The Accountant 2. I'd love to know your thoughts on this film down in the comment section down below. And if you don't know what we do here on Demigod ENT, we do film and TV reactions and reviews. So if you're interested in this movie-based content, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one, guys. Peace.